Hello my spooky friends, it is Stacy and welcome to Special Effects Makeup on a Budget. And if you're new here, I combine glam and gore, making sure that you can kick it up in your Halloween and cosplay game to save yourself some time and money. And today, I'm showing you how I created this eyeball injury with a fork into the eyeball. And let me tell you, I was on the struggle bus with this one.
Struggle.
I'm talking struggle. 3 times I resculpted this eye, and I didn't want anything to look cartoonish. I have to hand paint everything and use the tools that I have. I don't have printer paper. I don't even have a printer that works, so I don't print an iris. But I told you guys a long time ago that if I made a mistake or if I found a better way to make it, that I was going to show you guys to make sure that my mistakes don't become yours. And if I made eyeballs all day, and I did this often,
just do eyes.
It wouldn't be as bad, but I think personally I would still struggle. I'm not professional, I'm self-taught, so I'm just trying to make it look as good as I possibly can. And I just wasn't happy. You know, I did it once, I didn't like it. I even did it the second time and actually applied it, and you'll see everything that I went through. And so jump on the struggle bus with me and let's get to it. For the upper and lower eyelid, I poured some liquid latex onto a silicone sheet. Just make sure that it's a non-porous surface so that it lifts off easily. And I spread that out to the edges get thin, and I let that dry. Taking some air foam clay, I need that so it's super pliable. You need to warm it up first. And I created an eyeball. And to paint this, I'm using water paints, and I mixed a little bit of black into white. And I took the toothpick because it's not a brush and it won't feather, because you need that iris and that roundness to be precise. So before it dried, I took a clean toothbrush and I made etchings into it to put void in the paint to make it look like an iris. For the blood vessels, I'm using alcohol paint and a toothpick to put those into place, but you can also use water-based paint as well, or you can use yarn, or you can use yarn that you have to color red. That's why I recommend picking up red and white. Now, in order to make this look more bloodshot, I tapped my finger into the alcohol paint and tapped that to buff out all the harsh edges, and you can do the same thing with water paint using water. The reason why this first attempt did not go well was because I used fingernail polish to clear coat before I allowed my air foam clay to dry and cure for 24 hours. I then cut the prongs off of this plastic fork, and I made them all the same length, and that was the other part of this issue with this attempted fail. I removed my liquid latex, now that it's dry, off of the silicone mat using flour, but you can use cornstarch or baby powder. The point is you don't want it to stick to itself, so you must powder it on the front and also on the back. And taking scissors and cutting a crescent-like moon shape, just a curve in the liquid latex, because this is going to be the top and the bottom eyelid for this look. When applying this to the eyeball itself and pushing that fork in, because it wasn't 100% dry, this eyeball lost its shape and it was just an epic fail. And so then I had to start over. And because I lost sight of my scheduling time and I wanted to speed up the process, I thought to go ahead and use Polymer Plastic. So I heated that up in my container, and then I began to roll and shape everything into an eyeball. And if you need help with Polymer Plastic, I do have a separate tutorial on that I will link in the description below. In order for this to feel comfortable against the eye, I needed to put a void on the back of it so it would fit properly. And I do that by rolling up into a ball, and then I take my finger up underneath and I continue to press this until I have a void, or that it's completely flat, just allow an area for the eye itself. Using alcohol paints, because it dries quicker, I was not able to get the actual true looking iris that I did from the air foam clay, because I was able to put void into the paint. So I decided to use a paintbrush and go in and create an iris, and it wasn't crisp and clear, and it did not look, it just looked cartoonish, but I wanted to get that schedule, so I put myself in a time crunch. That is my fault, and that's why this one is also an epic fail, and you'll see the other ways that it is as well. And learning from my first mistake, I made sure that the prongs in the center were cut shorter than the prongs on the outside, and I also attached this with liquid latex, which did not hold. And after I pushed everything back to flesh tone and colored it, put in some fibers for the bloodshot eyes, I picked out an eyelash, and as you can see here, it is good to go as far as it being on the face. That wasn't a problem, but here you see in the application I went through and I almost in every scene have to hold this fork because the process of using just liquid latex to secure it did not work. I needed something else to help it along the way, and within the first 30 seconds this started to separate from the face because it was just too heavy. Also, the placement of the fork is a big issue, and I realized that, and so I had to do it again. I had to stop and go back to basics, and so here is yet again attempt number 3. Going back with air foam clay, letting it sit on my silicone pad for 24 hours, making sure it dried. I got a better paint in the iris, and I was able to put fibers and also paint and use the prongs properly, with the center being shorter and those prongs being longer on the outside so they fit the circumference of the eyeball. So here are your lessons from my mistake. Number 1, use air foam clay because it will alleviate the weight. It will take all that weight off. 2, make sure it dries for 24 hours. 3, cut your prongs shorter in the center, keep them longer on the outside so they fit, and secure it with super glue. Also, take your time because you want a prosthetic that's easy to apply. So now, finally, it's time for application. I took a cotton makeup remover pad and I cut that to fit my face, making sure that it doesn't go over the orbital bone and the socket too much. You want a little bit of overlapping, and you also want to protect your eyelash. It is a lot more comfortable to make sure you have just a little bit of security to keep the eyelid closed. It will feel comfortable for a lot longer when you're wearing the prosthetic. When working in a small area around the eye, be sure to protect all the hair around your eye, your eyelashes, and your eyebrow. You could put a little bit of Vaseline around it to protect it from the liquid latex. Just a little bit into this pan, and I take a sponge, and here is a quick tip. Don't throw away those makeup sponges that you use liquid latex. You can always cut those to get a new end. Now go in with a layer of liquid latex to make sure that that tape is secure, and then around the area to apply this cotton batting, making sure that you push it onto and up against the side of the nose because you're going to want a good secure fit and no break. So I take a Q-tip, so work with tools that fit the area. That is my best advice when working with latex. And in order to make that smooth and make sure that it is very secure, I'm taking tissue paper and going over the edge of the cotton batting as well. I just want some extra security because we do have a fork that's protruding out of the face, so that's going to give it a little bit of weight. So you want it very secure, and then after I place the tissue paper, I go back in with some liquid latex and I just push those edges around toward the cotton batting to cover the seal and get it as secure as I can, and also to make it take shape as the cotton batting itself. When using liquid latex and your sponges and your Q-tips, make sure that those are saturated with liquid latex before you touch another part of latex, because if you don't, if it's dry in any area, it will pull from the face. I am using scar wax to continue to build up this prosthetic piece. Also, I think it looks better between the transition between the skin and the cotton itself. And then I color mine by dipping what I need into the foundation I'm using, and I roll that in and roll it out into a small link, and then apply it around the edge. And the lotion on the back of my hand is so that my tools glide through instead of skate over. Now, if you are new to scar wax and you want to learn more about it, I do have a review about different types of scar wax, including how to make your own to save yourself some money. But check that out, it will be in the description below. At any time when you're working with scar wax and you feel your tool or your finger begin to pull at the material instead of glide over it, you then need to dip back into either the lotion or the Vaseline, and this also depends on the length of time that you have to work with it. If you need to manipulate it for a very long time, you're going to want to use something like Vaseline or olive oil. If you have a quick drying time and that's good for you, you can go in and use the lotion because it will dry a lot faster. And I continue to apply all the way around the edges of the cotton and liquid latex. I personally think that the scar wax helps right up under that brow bone to look a little bit more natural. I then apply a layer of liquid latex all over the edges of the scar wax and onto the actual prosthetic and the scar wax itself. The liquid latex that I use is a clear dry formula, and that will save you a lot of time when it comes to trying to bring liquid latex back to a skin tone color. So if you'd like to shop for that, check that out. It's in the description below. And with some liquid latex and some cotton that I rolled, I dipped into latex, and then I started to secure and put this around the eyeball and also over the back of the fork itself. This is going to make things a lot more secure. After each strip of tissue paper around the eyeball and also the fork, I put in an extra layer of liquid latex. I continued this process until I felt I have added more of a natural look of the eyelid itself, and also when I felt the weight of the fork no longer be an issue and that it was more secure. If you're going in with tools, the same thing. Make sure that your tools are very secure with liquid latex so that you can glide over any tissue paper and it won't stick to anything and pull up. You see I have the back here, and I took a thicker piece of tissue paper and I wrapped that around the back of the fork up underneath to the eyeball and also around at the top. I just continued to do this until that fork was secure, because trust me, you're going to bump into it when you're doing this. You're down to working with one eye, and then also you misjudge how far that fork is actually sticking out. And you'll see here that I'm taking this tissue and I'm rolling it, dipping it into liquid latex, and then just continue to go over in that process. For the eyelid, I cut and folded the liquid latex that we poured from earlier, and I'm making sure that that goes over the edge and it doesn't go up. So you don't want it to overlap and going up. You just want it to go over the prosthetic of the eyeball and on the outside of the fork. Do not let that go up into the brow bone, because that's going to create another seam that you have to hide. I am slowing this footage down so you can see how delicate and how time consuming this part is. I want to be realistic about what you're getting into. This is it. Your head turned to the side because you're down to one eye, keeping that same position, making sure you don't hit that fork a dozen times, and making sure that everything fits, everything is secure, and you take care of seams. So once I have the upper and lower eyelid in place, I put a little bit of liquid latex just to secure it to the other part of the prosthetic. To color this piece and bring it back to a flesh tone, I'm using my Skin Illustrator Flesh Palette. Skin Illustrator hardly ever goes on sale. The only time in the last 5 years that I've ever seen it go on sale is at the very end of the year. These are pretty pricey, but they're worth it. If you're looking to pick that up, wait for a Cyber Monday deal to save yourself about $20. Also, the reason for using the alcohol paint is because you see here I'm running out of foundation. This is all I had left because it's what I used on the other side of my face. But don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. It's all good.
It's all good.
It's okay to use several mediums to get the job done. I am using ColourPop's Taupe palette. Is what I use to create the look on the other eye. So what I do to one eye, I do to the other when it comes to color, shadows, and highlights. It's just a good practice to have. And using a dark taupe, I go in and create more of a shadow dimension to separate the upper and lower eyelid from the eyeball itself. But you can skip this look if you're going to use a lot of blood. I then applied an eyelash. And for the blood, I'm using alcohol activated paint, and I am applying that with a sponge. Alcohol paint will not run with sweat or water, so that's a good thing to think about if you're going to use this and have this look and you're going to be out and about at parties. You don't want to worry about it transferring on clothes, hair, or other things such as furniture. But the one thing with that is that it doesn't look wet. So with my gel blood, in order to control the actual drop of blood, I go in with a brush first, and then I take my dropper and I fill in the gap between the fork and the eyeball and let it run down the face. Using a brush will give you more control. You dip it into your gel blood and then you hold it and press it into the skin. If you're looking to make your own blood, I have a tutorial about 5 different kinds linked in the description below. And here is the final look, though I think would look better with lower eyelashes. I did not have any to spare because lashes are expensive. I only use the ones that don't clean well or those that have already been pre-used and I didn't have anything left. So as you can see here, I'm able to move my head up and down, left to right. That fork is not moving. There's nothing pulling forward in this look. It is very lightweight, and wow, this one really kicked my butt, I'm telling you. But don't let that discourage you. This is still a fun one to do. It's great to get people's reactions to it. But the problem I had was trying to control time, which is something that you can never do. You can be prepared for it, but you can never actually control it. I lost sight of that, and I was more concerned about the days that I film, because I film normally on a Wednesday. I take a couple of days to process it, about 2-3 days, and then I want it to come out on Friday so you guys have a video every week. But I did not let that first prosthetic eyeball dry, and that was my downfall. And so I had to bring it back to basics. I had to go back through and think about a true beginner and how someone would be watching this tutorial and really need help on what to do and when to do it. So having said that, I appreciate you guys being here. I hope that you learn from my mistakes. I hope that your looks turn out great and that you don't have a hard time. And remember that it's all about having fun. And if you'd like to see sneak peeks or behind the scenes footage or vote on my next look, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Those links are below. And now that you've mastered the eyeball injury with a fork, well, why not take it to the next level and check out this next video? And I will see you guys next time. Bye.